Are you ready for some good news? If you ever come to a time when you feel like you had accomplished so much and the victory had been won, only to find there was more ahead of you, that's not the time for despair. It's a time for joy, because it means that there's more that God has for you to do. Today we come in the narrative of this miracle man Elijah to a shockingly honest text about the great prophet who, after his great victory at Mount Carmel, becomes quite depressed, where you think you did it and you raised your kids, and then your daughter calls you and tells you that she's having struggles with her husband and she needs you to help. Overtime. You've been through all the chemo treatments, and the initial scans look good, and the doctor comes and says, but there's one area of concern. I think we should do radiation as well. Or you're a business person and you landed the big deal and you're only 6 months into it, and a competitor you find out has approached your big client with a sweet offer. Overtime. I'm talking about the times in life that can be so especially difficult, because although you have accomplished a great victory or seen a dream fulfilled or reached a mountaintop, there seems to always be a voice that comes and tries to shame you in the midst of that, saying, but you're still not enough. And we come to this breathtakingly honest narrative about one of the greatest men of God in the Old Testament, the miracle man Elijah, whose life points us in so many ways to Jesus, the Savior, who himself was tired, alone in a wilderness, and an angel came and ministered to him as well. I want to just walk through this story with you and see the dynamics that Elijah was experiencing, and see the incredible mercies of God, and take away for our own lives some prophetically powerful truths that might lift the discouraged and surely will plant hope in every Christian heart. Depression is considered by the medical community to be the most treatable form of all mental disorders, and yet it's the least treated. Just under 7% estimated of American adults, over 16 million, struggle with depression, and yet only a third seek treatment. Is it spiritual? Is it psychological? Is it physical? The answer is yes to all of that. Things spiritually affect us and affect our mind, and our mind affects us physiologically. And the things that are going on in you physiologically, the chemical balances within you physiologically are affecting your mind. We are spirit, soul, and body, and so we must be treated as such. So I just want to say this, anyone that's struggling with depression, please get treatment for this. There's not a stigma about getting medical treatment for depression. Every good gift comes from God. It doesn't mean that you're going to be stuck on some bad medication all your life. It doesn't mean that there's some stigma or some major thing that's wrong with you. You're an inferior Christian or something like that. There are so many complex ways that we wind up being in a depressed condition. The number one thing I have to say is that it is something God can change in your life and address it spiritually and psychologically and physically. It really, in some ways, it boils down to what is real. And we are designed, beloved, to live by faith, not by fear. We're designed to live and have vitality because of hope, of what is possible. And depression is the absence of such faith or such hope. You see, it's a strange thing. To be not depressed means that you are, in a sense, living by a hope and a faith that has found a higher reality than the natural reality. Because in the natural scheme of things, in the circumstances he was in chapter 18, he was in a terrible hot mess. There is something powerful for us here, that what happened with Elijah was not a change of circumstances that left him in a predicament to be depressed, but it was the draining of faith and hope. He lost sight of the word of the Lord, and instead he had the sound of the word of Jezebel running around in his mind. And you might think that God would come down with some heavy-handed judgment on his prophet. He might come down and bully him back into his senses. Snap out of it. You're the man of God. Don't you know what you're doing? You're representing me, and here you are sitting under a broom tree. Pull yourself up. It never works with a depressed person. Instead, verse 5, behold, an angel touched him and said, arise and eat. The power of touch. To a man who wanted to be alone, God refused to leave him isolated. This is our God. We who wanted to just get away from God, instead received him, and the Word became flesh. He's the God who draws near. You need connection. And this is who God is. You might want him to take your Jezebel away. You might want him just to remove your thorn. You might want him just to change your circumstances. But let me tell you what God normally does. He doesn't fix you like you want to fix from a substance. He doesn't snap everything into place like you want to get it some quick shortcut to glory. It is not by your might, it is not by your power, but by the Spirit of the Lord. It is not by your cleverness, it is not by your accomplishments, it is by the presence of God. And there is nourishment that is available in His grace. Arise and eat. Arise and be nourished in the grace of God, because God still has great things for you. And that's the gospel.